stakeholders are bought into the initiative. Because otherwise, at some stage or the other, they might try to, disrupt the plans. One of the things we've been doing, for instance, in a few cities, is the transition of three-wheelers, auto-rickshaws, to electric auto-rickshaws. And our team has been working with those city governments, but also with the auto-rickshaw unions, to help them understand what that transition would be. How do you finance that thing? How much will you save on a daily basis on your fuel expenses, etc. So, I mean, today if someone comes and tells you, don't be a journalist, become something else tomorrow, you're not going to accept it overnight, right? So you've got to take those constituencies along. And in Amritsar city, for instance, in Punjab, we just rolled out a program where 300 auto rickshaw drivers would be given these auto rickshaws to drive them, test them, see their savings, etc. Then they start talking. So the union has a pradhan, a chief, then they've got members. Each pradhan then starts talking to the members, right? Then we had a radio campaign to explain to them the benefits. Then there's of course a government subsidy to help them pay for that initial thing. So only a comprehensive approach helps them to then buy into a transition where then thousands of auto rickshaws then start changing to electric auto rickshaws. But the other way to maintain the consistency of this is how we're doing e-buses. Today an e-bus is 3 to 4, maybe 5 times more expensive than a diesel bus. No transport company will have that kind of money, or bank will lend that kind of money to buy it. So the auctions, the way they were designed was you don't pay for the bus, you bid on the lifetime payment per passenger kilometer traveled. On that auction, we found that the e-bus cost became cheaper than the diesel bus. So then you see that then the transport company has an interest in maintaining the quality of service on the bus over the lifetime of the bus, because the payback is over the lifetime of the bus. If you just give them a bus for free, then they might not maintain it, to your point, in 2 or 3 years and might collapse. But when you design the market and design the auction in a way that the passenger pays lower tariffs, the government has less outlay, and the company has an incentive to maintain the infrastructure to get that payback over a 10-year period, then all the constituencies are aligned for a different type of system. So I think these are the challenges you're highlighting are certainly real, but they're not insurmountable. And this is where design of policy, regulation, and markets becomes very important to then capture these huge economic opportunities that are emerging in the clean energy transition.
Do we have any other questions? We have one question.
Good afternoon. Good morning to all of you. My question is primarily to both of the panelists. Primarily speaking, whenever we talk about green space, whenever we talk about green energies, the first thing that comes to mind is it's very expensive. The second thing we come across is that it's not always available. If we talk about sources like solar, it also depends upon the location. Thirdly, it's also important that it's not highly efficient. There is a factor which comes into play, and over time it ages, it comes down. So these are the impediments that exist. At the same time, I was going through a cursory reading of a paper. You have mentioned that there's a requirement of a huge amount of investment to the tune of more than $200 billion every year at 2020 rates. For India, I'm talking about India.
Right.
Now, there are these impediments, there is a challenge in front of us. How do you see this happening? That is one part of it. This is with regard to the Indian perspective. With regard to the Sri Lankan perspective, Mr. Vijayavardhan, this is primarily to you. There are Indian projects which are happening here in Sri Lanka, including the solar power projects in Sampur, or even the Punarin and Munnar's wind energy projects. While at the same time, you have already mentioned that there are Western interests which come in the way and try to bring bad repute to these things just because they have their own interests. How best is it to tackle these kinds of talks when these kinds of things happen? Because ultimately, in the long run, these projects will be more useful for Sri Lanka in particular and in general for the entire planet.
Maybe I'll answer your question first. Is it more expensive? Yes and no. In the sense, when we began our solar mission in 2010, a single unit of solar was over 20 rupees, when a unit from coal power was maybe 5 rupees, 6 rupees. So obviously it was more expensive. But the way the auctions were designed, and this is why auction design, market design is so important, we were able to use market competition to drive down the prices. It's called a reverse auction. So you're bidding at the lowest price you can provide. Right? Now, of course, overnight you're not going to go from 20 to 10. So the initial auctions were smaller in size. And bit by bit, as we understood and the market evolved, the auctions became bigger and bigger and bigger. We've managed to have now auctions down to 1 rupee 99 paise, 2 rupees 20 paise, right? 3 US cents, 3.5 US cents. These are some of the lowest price renewable energy tariffs anywhere in the world on the back of efficiently designed, transparent markets. When you add to that, to your point where it's not always available, it's not always sunny, you have to add storage. So you add the storage cost. The recent auctions in Gujarat have now shown that solar plus storage is also now cheaper than thermal power. If you think batteries are too expensive, you can do a combination of solar plus wind. Sun shines in the day, wind blows harder at night. So India is constantly evolving its market design so that the costs keep coming down, both for the utilities and for the consumer. Another thing that has to happen is in terms of the market opportunity. And this is where, and I make a distinction between finance and investment, while we need tens of billions of dollars of finance, if you convert it into investment opportunity, investors have the opportunity to make money. So that $200 billion and annualized over our net zero from now until 2070, actually against a currently a $4 trillion economy which will grow, it does not seem so insurmountable when that becomes one of your main infrastructure sectors. So I was looking at the numbers for Sri Lanka. Think about $50 to $55 billion will be needed. In total, it seems huge. Break it down annually with efficient options and market design, you can then begin to attract it as investment into your own infrastructure. Right? So I think it's important to not just to look at the overall quantum, but how we design the markets that make investment in clean infrastructure, whether it's energy or transport or industry or agribusiness, as an opportunity to make money and give returns to investors, but also give returns to savers like us, who then put money into those mutual funds. And that is the transition that we need to showcase, that again, is not just an energy transition, not just an environmental problem, but an economic transformation opportunity.
Well, I think for the question that you asked me, I think it's where we lack is communication. Most of these projects are, they are absolutely vital and are important for Sri Lanka. But it leaves a little gray area for people to start thinking, oh, there might be something wrong here. Corruption is one issue. There's always, one group that is not going to be very favorable to any project that is going to be implemented. But communication is vital, I think that's the energy that is coming through these solar panels, which is why it was, the cost was high. So you have issues there. There are always, it's not, it's, there are also environmental concerns when you do projects on renewable energy. I think, if we talk about the Dhani project, which is absolutely vital, we're looking at, offshore wind energy that can be converted to eventually green hydrogen and then exported to India, which will have so much of financial benefits for Sri Lanka. But then you have environmental groups who are also concerned about bird migration, especially the flamingos that come into the area. So these are there's so many concerns when it comes to implementing projects in Sri Lanka. So at that point, a lot of research has to be done, as well as proper communication also has to be done, and that's where media can play a vital role in taking. Obviously, there are certain times that certain projects will be approved. The policymakers might think